Log, January 29th of the 206th cycle. First Lieutenant Caliburn. It was always my ambition as a child to see the stars, to see that vast arc of wonder span as far as my eye could see, and know that I could touch them. Every Belter child grows up with these dreams. The stars were our escape. We dream of commanding mighty ships and flying from star to star, just to see what was there. But now I find I have no time to stand and stare, no time to be amazed at the sights around me. War has come to the Council, and now all Belters must play their part. The Templar have returned, and the Tritachyon and Hegemony are squabbling for the scraps and remains of their conquests. And what they do not consume, the Cabal and Pirates pillage. The Council must stand for its own, and every merchantman, mercenary, and miner is taking up arms once again. My mind still reels when I think back on what steps have led me here. A privateer, under a captain I barely know. Still in all, he seems capable, though a bit eccentric. We're well provisioned, and we have a few luxuries. Being a private ship means we're not bound by the military customs and schedules. We come and go where we please. And we have the full support of the Council so long as we further the Councilor's interests. We get little time each day, though, but I suspect things will calm down once we get settled in and away from the constant patrols. When I have time, I'll have to keep this little log going. It isn't much, but it is something human in this immense blackness. Hello, denizens of the internet, and welcome back to Season 2 of Starsector. That's right, we are returning, finally! I hope you enjoyed that little introduction. I'm looking forward to doing that before every episode, actually. Just a little story segment to add a little bit of spice and flavor to what we're doing as we go through the gameplay sessions, and possibly to incorporate some of you guys into this story. I definitely have some plans for some of the people who are known to the Starsector community and the makers of some of the mods themselves. If you have a special request for a particular role or particular personality, please let me know and I can incorporate those into the rolling story that we have going. I'll have to write the story before each episode because, of course, it's going to depend on the episodes that came before it, so I don't have these huge arcing story. I have some directions I want to take it in, but we'll see how the game goes and what choices we make as we play, and then I will incorporate that into the story. So, if you would like to be in the story, or you would like a particular person or personality associated with you, then please let me know and I can incorporate that in. It's been a little while since we put up a Starsector video on the channel, probably about a month now, I guess, maybe 3 weeks, and there's many reasons for that. If you want to know exactly why, you'll probably want to go watch the latest Nostalgia Night, I think it's number 5, where I go into exactly what all happened to me the past few weeks and why there haven't been as many videos. It's the tale of 3 woes, let me just say that. But I already said enough about that in that episode. We're not going to do that here. We're going to jump right in into modded Starsector. Now, during the introduction, you saw a list of the mods that we're going to be featuring in this season. That list is a frozen list. It will not be changing as we play through this season. So the versions that we are at are what we're at. Now, the one thing that I have done since I posted the mod guide is I have updated the Taidong Heavy Industries to the latest version. Immediately after I started uploading that video, like within minutes, the Taidong Heavy Industries was updated to be 0.7.2a compatible, and that particular step of the mod guide is no longer necessary. Other than that, it's as you saw in the mod guide, and we will be sticking to that through this run-through. Now, of course, we're playing with a bunch of mods, so everything has changed. Everything. I mean, it's so different just playing with Nexrelian alone, let alone all the additional factions and the additional little helper mods that we've added in. So, we're actually going to go in here with our nice portrait pack and choose a picture. Now, of course, there's a lot more pictures, because again, we're using that portrait pack, but I've already scoped this out, and there's one that just looks like a penguin in a spacesuit. I have to choose it. There is no way I could choose anything except for this picture right here. I know this isn't necessarily the one you would choose, but admit it. Doesn't that look like a penguin in a spacesuit? I mean, it really does, even down to the use of the colors that are in use here. All right, let's go ahead and give ourselves a name and start up our Nexrelian game setup. Now, Nexrelian changes a whole lot, and they're going to tell you about that if you go ahead and click next here. We're actually just going to go ahead and skip, because I'm going to tell you most of the changes, and, well, we don't need to know that. Okay, one of the things that Nexrelian can do that's really neat is it can generate a random map that is different every time, and of course is not actually bound to the rules that the base game has. Because of course the base game, you always start in Corvus, I think you always start in Corvus, but and it has the same galactic map every time. Well, we're not going to turn that on. We're going to be playing with Corvus mode off. We have so many factions in this playthrough that I'm actually going to change the number of star systems present in our little galactic map, in the cluster, to 16. That sounds like a lot, but that gives us enough room that these factions can expand, take over planets, take over stations, that sort of thing, because in Nexrelian, they can and do that. It's really neat. These other options we're going to leave alone. Well, you know, let's up the number of stations. Let's up it to, I don't know, 5. That'll give us a lot of stations to play with. That may turn out to be excessive, but it should lead to a lot of fleets flying around and a lot of action on the map, which I'm all for. I like things exploding. What can I say, okay? Other options, we're going to enable the Omni Factory. What the Omni Factory is that you can pay double price and clone any item you have. I think it takes some time to build, but this allows you to, well, if there's something that you either lose access to or is really rare, but you kind of want it, especially since we're doing a YouTube series here, this is going to allow us to, pay for it, but clone it in a, in a lore-friendly way. This is some sort of AI factory out there that clones anything you put into it, but, you have to pay for it, right? The Prism Freeport is a trade station in hyperspace that has some high-end goods. We're going to turn that on because why not? It's always up to us whether we want to buy the goods that are there or not, so let's turn it on. Also, that was a really, really cool ship in the background right there. We could have random faction relationships at the start. It's actually really tempting to do that. But for lore reasons, I think we're actually going to leave that alone and make our own friends and enemies as the game goes on. Plus, these factions are going to be declaring war on each other on their own, so let's just leave that alone. We are going to turn on faction respawning. Now, this is a thing I really, really, really went back and forth on. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do it, but because normally if I was playing the game, I probably wouldn't turn this on. If a faction gets wiped out, well, that's just the way it goes. But because we're doing a YouTube series and I want to go ahead and show off the different mods and their own ships, then I need those factions to stick around, If they get blown up and taken out of the game, then we can't explore that in this playthrough. Maybe on future playthroughs we'll turn that off, but at least in this initial playthrough, I want to see those ships. I want to see all this content that we've added to the game. I don't want, the Templars to just take over and annihilate everything, which is probably going to happen anyway. We're going to leave easy mode and hard mode off. We're going to just roll with normal. Easy mode was kind of, that hidden bane in Season 1 where we just finished the game way too fast, way too early. We're going to leave that off. So that's going to be probably... And whoa, okay, so that's a really, really neat ship in the background. I haven't seen all these ships. I want to see them. I want to play as them. I want to fly them. Okay, let's go ahead and get this started. Now, we have the option of which faction we want to go with. We could go with the vanilla factions that are, of course, in the game from the start. But we're actually going to... Oh, there was one other option here. You can go as a free start, which means you're not associated with any faction. That's kind of actually what you start with in the base game, where, you know, if you remember back in Season 1, we had to establish ourselves with the hegemony before they'd start selling us their good ships and whatnot. You would have to do that here with the free start. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to associate ourselves with the Pegasus Belt Council. This is one of the modded factions, and it seemed like one of the more balanced ones. The ships are pretty powerful. They have good abilities associated with them, but they definitely have some, I don't know, some downsides. They're a little bit slower. They don't necessarily have the best shield coverage. You have to play tactically. They aren't overpowered. Now, because we're playing with so many modded factions, we can kind of play to those weaknesses and find ways around that by exploring the other factions and filling in the gaps that the Pegasus Belt Council has, but it's definitely going to provide us with an interesting take on the core Starsector experience. Well, I say core Starsector experience, but of course we're playing with the Next Aurelian mod, which of course changes all of that core experience. I had the option of going with one of the factions that you guys requested specifically to be in this mod pack. There were a few that I have added by request. However, didn't want to play favorites there. We'll still get to see your ships because I did not choose random faction relationships. So we'll still be able to see those ships, but we won't be starting as that faction. We're going to choose Lieutenant just to kind of accelerate the start just a little bit. Ensign, you know, we could totally do that. There's no reason why we couldn't play as Ensign or Ensign. Ensign? Yeah. But we're actually going to choose Lieutenant, just going to give us that little bit of a leg up without making things too ridiculous by choosing Commander. Plus, for lore reasons, Lieutenant fits, right? Okay, so because we chose Lieutenant, we have some starting aptitude points and skill points that we can allocate. We're going to take a similar track that we did in Season 1, where we're going to put a lot of our starting skill points into combat, and then come back once we have a fleet and put them in leadership and technology. Of course, Industry tab is still incomplete. Ooh, hello there. Alright, let's go ahead and put our starting 5 aptitude points in combat so that we can go ahead and get some of these combat skills up to level 5. Now, I think probably my starting skill that I want to put up the most is this helmsmanship. The reason being, it gives us additional top speed, acceleration, and maneuverability. That's a pretty powerful trio if we get that to level 5. We get an additional top 10% speed, an additional 25% acceleration, and an additional 50% maneuverability. Really, really cool. We're going to need that, I have a feeling, before too long. Because remember, we're starting out with wimpy ships, so we need to be able to turn and interpose our shields and that sort of thing. Next up, I'm thinking, you know, ballistic and energy projectile speed is probably pretty good. It's also going to increase our weapon damage, which we're not playing on easy mode now. This matters. Let's go ahead and get that up to level 5. And then lastly, we're going to get evasive action up to level 4. It's not going to really come into play until we get it up to level 5 and we get that plus 75% maneuverability, but it gets us very, very close. So all we have to do is level up once, and then we'll have access to that as well. The only other one that I might consider is the missile specialization, because our starting ship does have a decent number of missiles. The plus speed and maneuverability to missiles is pretty good. An extra 20% would be pretty powerful. You know, that... Should I go after that? That's probably better than the reduced engine damage taken. You know, let's go ahead and take this. This is definitely going to be good for all ships, regardless of whether we are using missiles or not. So that's probably the safer starting choice, the evasive action. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with that. We'll let the game go ahead and start up, and I'll talk a little bit about what Next Aurelian does. Not only does it offer randomized star clusters, but it also adds in some of the features that well, honestly, I wish we're in the base game itself. The ability for factions to take other planets and stations. There is mining in the game. Factions will send vengeance fleets after you. All sorts of stuff. You also get a monthly salary from your patron faction, which I believe does increase as you increase your standing with that faction. So there's definitely some rewards for doing that. Okay, so here we are in our starting system, which, if we go to our map, is the system of Exrelian. And look at all this stuff out here. There's all sorts of stuff. All right, let's get us our bearings on what our situation is. So if we go over here to our factions, we can see who our friends are and who our enemies are, and from there make decisions about where we want to go and what we want to do. Okay, so the Associated Starline Parcels Syndicate, oh, I just thought it was ASP, Syndicate is suspicious of us. Okay, well, they aren't enemies yet, but suspicious. Blackrock Drive Yards is neutral. Cabal is hostile to everybody except for the Tritachyon, I think. Yeah, pretty much. I'm going to call these guys Diablo Corporation. I do realize that, or Diablo Avionics, I do realize that's not how it's actually spelled. However, I am going to get it wrong so many times that I'm just going to call them Diablo Corporation. I apologize. I'm just going to get it wrong too many times otherwise. If you know how this should be pronounced, please let me know. I will be happy to change it and pronounce it correctly if I know. I'm guessing it's like Diable or something. I don't know. Hegemony is hostile. Our old allies, of course, who we played in Season 1, is now our known enemy. And that's interesting because they are allied to BlackRock. BlackRock right now is neutral to us, but if we bang on the Hegemony too bad, BlackRock may not like us very much. Not sure. Hegemony is actually hostile to a lot of people in this playthrough, and I believe there is actually a Hegemony station in our current system, so that will be interesting. Imperium, the Interstellar Imperium, is neutral. Junk Pirates are hostile. Again, I think they're hostile to pretty much everybody. That's a lot of, that scroll bar is pretty big. I don't see how anybody could escape that list. So we'll be targeting these guys a decent amount, I have a feeling. Knights Templar is also hostile to everybody. I don't think they have any friends whatsoever. Ludic Church is inhospitable. Not actually hostile, but inhospitable. We could rescue this if we wanted to. Ludic Path, hostile. Of course, they're hostile to everybody too. So we have a decent number of hostile to everybody factions. Hopefully they actually can establish a foothold and we'll have lots of targets to choose from. Meddlesome, they're neutral. Nice to see. We'll have the opportunity to explore those ships. Neutrino Corporation, neutral. New Galactic Order, neutral. The Pack is neutral. And of course, the Pegasus Belt Council, who we are playing, we have this nice, huge boost to our standings with. And that is really going to be nice because we're going to have access to the military market right from the beginning. And that's going to be good for weapons as well as the ships. And we will definitely be, at least in the early game, sticking around those stations just because we'll have access to more things than we will anywhere else. Psi Nation is neutral. The Shadow Yards Reconstruction Authority is also neutral. The Cindrian Diktat is suspicious, but not actually hostile. They might just give us some trouble if we fly through their system. The Tritachyon is hostile. Okay, our enemies from the first game are hostile again in this run-through. Independents are neutral, and the Pirates are hostile as well. Tritachyon, they are allied with the Cabal, will probably be... Yeah, they aren't actually allied with anybody else, so we'll be banging up on these guys, and hopefully... Who was it, BlackRock? No, they're allied with the Hegemony. Okay, so that means we can beat up on the Tritachyon, hopefully with ease or without worry of angering too many other factions in the game. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at our system map, and we can see who all is here. Now, I wish you could see factions on this map, but you can't. I actually have to go back over here to our intel map, and I can see who's in the system with us. Diablo Avionics military station is here. Pegasus Belt Council is, of course, here. Psi Nation is here. Shadow Yards is here. Tritachyon and Hegemony are both here. And the Omni Factory. Okay, so we have 4 allied stations, not counting the Omni Factory, and 2 enemy stations here with us. Now, both the enemy stations are relatively small. And we have a bounty here that is actually on, oh, it's actually on us. Apparently we've been doing activity in this system and they have put a bounty on us. Okay, it'll be interesting to see if the artificial intelligence takes advantage of that. We also have a bounty on a particular person, and this was posted by who? Imperium. Okay. They're just neutral to us, but we may want to chase that down here. We probably won't be able to build up enough to be able to take that. Nearest systems to us are the Karit system, which is BlackRock, Junk Pirates, Ludic Church, Independent Pirates, and the Asp Syndicate. Okay, that's a decent target. That would give us probably, well, if you count the Ludic Church, that would be 3 targets to go after. Lugast has Tritachyon and the Knights Templar. Okay, we're going to stay away from the Knights Templar for now. I have purposely not explored their ships at all. I know they're vastly overpowered. I'm going to leave that until I actually encounter them and try to get myself out of that situation. I really don't know very much about them except that they're very hard, and I'm looking forward to when I encounter them, and I'm hopelessly overwhelmed. Okay, Masada is Ludic Church Military, Medelson Industries, New Galactic Order, Sindrian Dictat, and Diablo Avionics. Okay, I'm interested in checking out the Medelson Industries because asteroid mining and planet mining is a thing in Nexralian, and I do know that the Medelson Industries has a ship that can do the mining, and I'd at least like to just check that out and see what it's like. I don't think we're going to do that for, 70 episodes or anything like that, but it'd be nice as an additional source of income here in the beginning of the game, I think. Okay, let's take a look at our crew and cargo. We don't start with very much at all, which makes me very glad I chose Lieutenant, and I have some additional credits available to us. Okay. We have here the ISS Princess Carolina II, an Orion-class assault frigate. Let's go ahead and see what that ship is all about. The Orion frigate would be another medium-grade frigate if it didn't have its system, and carry several catcher drones that can pin down small prey. After ship is... That's not the best English. After ship is immobilized, it is an easy target both for the Orion and for nearby allies. A couple things immediately jump out at me about this ship. First off, it has decent shield coverage, 140 degrees. It's not an Omni shield, which means we can't direct it, but it's at least decent. It's not very fast. Only 100 on the top speed. If you remember right from Season 1, we had a very nice, very fast ship that could hit up to 230 once I had leveled up a bit. And with the 50-point flux boost. Decent maximum burn. 48 ordnance points. That's decent. I like that. And 6 mounts. Okay, we'll see what the coverage is like, but I'm thinking that's reasonable. Let's go ahead and take a look at how they have, by default, outfitted this ship. All 48 ordnance points used. Very nice. We have a Sabbat SRM. Decent damage. Does kinetic damage, so it's good against shields. We're going to need a good heavy explosive weapon to follow that up. But a Salamander MRM. Okay, Salamander is that funky missile that never runs out of ammo. It has just no ammo count whatsoever. It's not even a charges per minute recharge style weapon. It just literally has no ammo count. And it's very good at knocking out engines because those missiles will automatically circle around the target and try to hit them from behind, and of course they do EMP damage, in addition to some fragmentation damage. Okay. And we have a pulse laser, a PD laser, IR pulse laser. Okay, that's not actually a point defense laser. Not the best range, though. So we've got 2 point defense lasers back here, and an offensive laser over on this side of the ship. Very unbalanced, interesting, we'll see how that works out. As well as a light assault gun in the middle. Okay, a couple things. This ship is very close range. 600 range and 500 range on our primary non-missile based weapons. Not very good, especially since this is not a very fast ship. Decent weapon flux dissipation. We'll see how that looks over here. Largely that's from Group 2, which is our assault gun and our pulse laser. Naturally, but as long as we're dodging in and out of combat, we shouldn't have any problem maintaining our flux. Cool. Okay. that's kind of what we start with, but let's see what the planet here has to offer, because of course this is actually a home world. Even though it's not a station, it does have a military station that we can buy ships from, as well as of course the open market. Not that I want anything from the open market. Ooh, a blockade runner. Cool, what is this? During the conflict with Tritachyon Corporation, the Pegasus Belt Council suffered a lot from small raider groups harassing its convoys. Supplies were critical, so a brand new ship was developed specifically for escaping the raider groups. Tethys engines were modified to allow venting plasma, being harmful to enemy propulsion systems. Pursuing forces usually get flameouts quickly after moving behind this blockade runner. It lacks maneuverability, but has unusually high speed for Council ships. Interesting. Let's take a look at this. System. Eject engine plasma. Vents a cloud of plasma through engines that disables engines of enemy ships entering the area. Oh, that is cool. Not very good weapon mounts, and not very fast. But still, that's a really, really cool ability. Neat. I hope we see that on some other ships too. And of course, in the military tab, we have a very similar looking ship over here that we can barely afford. A destroyer. Of course, I like my destroyers. They make up for the lack of speed and being able to mount weapons that have long range. It has an amplified phase skimmer. Well, let's read the description. We'll get to that. Morai originates from a civilian Tethys blockade runner. I guess that's why it looks like it. It was almost totally redesigned. Cargo section with most central hull was replaced with a phase propulsion device. It also has integrated network of tiny PD lasers, providing cover to its rear. This destroyer is one of the most versatile ships in the Pegasus Belt Council fleet. Okay, let's take a look at this. 100 ordnance points. I like it. Amplified phase skimmer. Teleports a ship in the movement direction. It's faster than common skimmer and allows for longer jumps, but has only one charge. Cool. Also has 6 integrated point defense lasers. Oh, I like this ship. I like this ship. Front shield, 200 degrees arc. Reasonable, especially since we have the additional maneuverability skills to take advantage of that. Very good flux per damage ratio. Pretty good built-in flux dissipation. Kind of slow, but honestly speaking, that's barely slower than our frigate that we're in. Our frigate had a max top speed of 100. This is really cool. Not only that, it has a jump drive and an integrated point defense lasers. Ooh, me wants. Medium universal mount, 2 small missiles, 2 medium energies, and 2 small universals. Pretty cool. I like it. What else can we get? A Nyx. Okay, let's take a look at that. Ongoing conflict with Tritachyon, our hated enemies, quickly led to the conclusion that not many Pegasus Belt Council ships can successfully fight phase vessels. This is true. It was true of the hegemony in our last gameplay session too. I cut most of those videos short. I'm serious. 20-minute combat missions where I just chase the ship around until eventually its combat readiness drops so much it dies. Not the most entertaining thing to watch. Speed was the key factor limiting effectiveness. An asymmetric response involved fielding an experimental phase inhibitor device, which made it harder for phase ships to engage cloak in proximity. The new device was built in the Nyx-class destroyer as soon as it was ready and helped to halt the Tritachyon assault. Though the Nyx destroyer is designed for fleet use, it can still handle some minor threats. Okay. This has a phase inhibitor, and this is one of those disabling abilities or debuff abilities that I'm kind of really excited about. Now, it's worth noting this only has 60 ordnance points, so you pay for this ability, but it generates a phase disturbance field, effectively reducing the timescale bonus max speed and, critically, raising the cloak upkeep for nearby phase ships. So that means if they try to cloak nearby you, they get to that overload point much faster. And it also means that they're slower if they're phased. Basically, it just nullifies the advantage that they have. Of course, they can still phase and try to dodge, but it's definitely going to make it costly for them to do so. And even though this ship isn't all that fast, it's going to mean that your fleet is going to be much more capable of handling that threat. Now, this ship does have a much better shield, especially if we can get some shield extenders on it. 270 degrees on a front shield. Very, very nice. I like it. Almost as good as our hammerheads in our last gameplay, as well as a very good ship flux to damage ratio for the shields. One small missile, one medium universal, one small universal. Oh, excuse me, one small missile, one medium universal, one small universal, one small ballistic, and two small energy. Definitely got some smaller weapons on it, but it's a little bit tanky due to the increased shield arc, and that phase inhibitor is awesome. We're definitely going to want this ship. I just don't know that we want it right out of the gate, although it is a little bit cheaper. We have access to a carrier already. Neat. It can also hack missiles. Very, very, very cool. Very slow. Very, very slow. Probably don't have enough to keep that alive right now, so we'll leave that alone. We also have access to the Palace frigate. Let's go ahead and expand that one. Okay, so this is targeting the Hyperion, because of course the Hyperion doesn't like us very much either. So I'm noticing a trend here where the Pegasus Belt Council ships are pretty slow. They're not fatally slow, but that is obviously a balancing point that Celestis, the mod maker, has used to make sure that this is very balanced, at least in line with the vanilla factions. So the comment here is that they lack the propulsion technologies, and so it couldn't match the Hyperion, and instead they focused on the firepower. Pretty cool. It's a little bit faster, very good shield flux to damage ratio, and a 360 degree shield. Finally, built into the ship. Very cool. Has a decent number of ordnance points, even higher than the ship that we're currently fielding. And it can emit a gravity wave repulsing missiles and ships. May disable engines when it does it, though. Or does it disable the enemy engines? Not sure. Has a medium weapon mount. Very impressive. For a frigate, that's pretty cool. 2 small energy, 2 small ballistic. Very, very cool ship. Definitely I'm going to want some of these, I think, in our fleet. I think this Vigilance is just built-in ship. I don't think this is actually from a mod, so we're not going to look at that too much. Mud Skipper. Okay, and then we start getting down into the fighter wings. Now, I've noticed that the Pegasus Belt Council fighter wings, they aren't fast. These are fighter wings, but they're really slow. So the Pegasus Belt Council is definitely focused on slower ships, which is not a problem. But it is very interesting to note, and it does make these other fighters, well, look kind of good. I mean, a top speed of 225, that's, double the speed of almost all of the Pegasus Belt Council ships. I'm just going to call them Pegasus, okay? Okay, and then of course there's ships up here that we can't afford yet, like the Aether Light Cruiser and things like that. We'll definitely be looking at these once we can field these, but for the moment, I'm trying to decide, should I try to get one of these destroyers? Here, minimum crew 40, which would put us needing 65. I don't know that we can afford that yet. I'd love to be able to afford it. I just don't know that I can do it yet. I might have to go for this Palace frigate instead. While I would love to get this Morai destroyer, I just don't think I can afford it. That would put us at less than 9,000 credits, and I just don't think that's enough to outfit it, get crew, and get more supplies. I think instead I'll have to start small. Oh well. Let's go ahead and get the Palace frigate here for about half our money. That's not all that much cheaper, but it looks very good and packs a punch. So let's go ahead and, what does our crew need? We're going to need 45 crew, so let's go and go buy those from the market. We're going to start with green crew. We're going to have to save our money a lot in the beginning of the game. Let's go ahead and get a decent amount of crew. And then some more supplies, which are pretty expensive right now, which is a shame. Oop. Wow, that's really, really high per day cost. What is it now? Okay. So that's 80 days worth of supplies, which is basically all we can carry, but that's going to get us started at least. And now let's see if we can't outfit this sucker. So we have a medium hybrid hardpoint in the front. Hybrid, it means we're going to be able to use energy weapons, or we're going to be able to use ballistic weapons. I'm not sure which one we want to use. What else can we do? We have 2 small ballistic hardpoints facing forward, 2 small energy turrets facing around the craft. Okay, we still have that 360-degree shield arc, and we're definitely going to have to raise up our flux dissipation. One thing I didn't notice was the built-in shield actually has a pretty high shield flux per second cost. We're definitely going to need as many vents as we can get. Okay, what weapon do we want to do? We could do a heavy burst laser. No, we're not doing that. For our frontal cannon here, I definitely think we're going to need some range. Our ships are slow, so I'd like to compensate for that by having long-range weapons. And we could do the heavy mauler. What else do we have available to us? Medium burst nailer. What's that? Okay, all of our weapons except for the heavy mauler are relatively short range. That is unfortunate. So let's see what we can do with the small mounts instead. Can we get range with those, maybe some long-range kinetic weapons, and then have a frontal heavy explosive weapon that's closer range? Well, not really. We could take high explosive, but I'm thinking for our start we might have to go with light dual autocannons. They still don't have fantastic range, but that gets us the kinetic damage. 2 of those. And then for our central gun then, I'm thinking I might go with the heavy burst laser. I feel like this ship we might be using, and we can make use of the timing on that to do most of our damage against the armor instead. It is closer range, but it's very high damage as long as it has charges against anything. So it's good against shields, it's also good against armor. My other options here for longer range weapons, I mean, really, I don't have very much here. I mean, I could take a pulse laser, but that generates way too much flux for us right now. Whereas the heavy burst laser is much less flux. It's a third of the flux. Now I could take the heavy mauler, which again is going to have that longer range, but shoots once a second. Okay, I just noticed the killer on that is its primary role is point defense, which means I think it will get distracted by missiles. I'm not 100% sure, but it might get distracted, and I don't think I can afford that. I think I need a heavy weapon up front. Golly, that looks ridiculous. For our small side energy turrets here, ooh, you're my fan laser. Okay, for these side-mounted energy weapons, I've been taking a look at these. I'm not sure what this You're My Fan Laser is. I tempted to take it, but I was taking a look at this. We need more frontal damage. Yes, we do need some point defense, but I'm thinking since we have 360-degree shields, at least in the early game, we're just going to have to see if we can avoid missile-heavy enemies. We just don't have enough point defense on our very small ships to be able to handle that. So maybe once we get the Morai, maybe we can do it. But so I'm looking at adding to our frontal damage, adding to that damage we can do up front. And I noticed that this shield arc does, or this weapon arc does in fact cover the front. So what I'm thinking is I could take an IR pulse laser, but the flux per second is pretty high. I mean, it basically does 1 point of flux per point of damage done, and the range isn't all that great. I could take a burst point defense laser, and that would be good. It gives us that point defense that we wanted, and it has pretty low flux per second cost. It's very bursty, does a lot of damage up front, and has range that is consistent with our dual light autocannons, which is good. I could also take the vibrating beam, though, which for only a little bit more flux gives me a higher sustained damage, much higher sustained damage, and a higher range. And I'm thinking that's the way to go. We may try those burst point defense lasers, but I just can't justify it at this point in time. Now, what else can we get here? So I think we're probably just going to want to max out our capacitors to fill up our remaining ordnance points, and then there we go. There is our Palace-class frigate. let's set up our weapon groups here. We'll probably want the dual autocannons to be auto. Heavy Mauler, probably not auto, and then the vibrating beams, probably also on auto. The total weapon flux is still way higher than we can actually sustain. But we're not planning on staying within range all the time. Let's run a simulation with these two ships. We'll deploy with those, and then we'll go ahead and bring out, I don't know, two frigates from 2 lashers, and see how we do against this. Go ahead and just raise my shields a little bit here. And try to get the targets in my sights, and just get pretty close to him. We do pretty good alpha damage, so let's go ahead and try to use our Heavy Mauler to do some damage on him. And I need to back up, because otherwise I'm going to overload. Oh, his back is to me. Oh, didn't get him. Right. Oh, we need to go help our friendly ship. He has been disabled. That's very, very not good. That guy is pretty damaged. Hopefully he'll hang back. Go ahead and use our Graviton Burst. Generated a fair amount of flux, but let's go ahead and vent to dump that. And just see what that Graviton Burst does. Alright, he fired some missiles. Let's see if I can go ahead and take him out. See if I can overload his shields very quickly. And then hit him with our Heavy Mauler. Okay, I need to back up from this guy. I'm going to overload very quickly. And he got me. Alright, not easy mode. We are going to have an interesting time here. Okay, well, I'll take it. That was not a situation I should have gotten myself in. I should have used the Graviton Wave before I got to that point, and I shouldn't have lost the other ship anyway, but it's okay. Let's add Travis Crawford here to our ship, and we may swap out here. In fact, I'm kind of tempted to swap the ships. Let him fly the standard ship, because I really feel like this ship is a little bit more touchy and is going to require a little bit better handle to use effectively. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can't really buy any other ships here. I mean, there's just nothing that's all that effective. We don't have enough money left to really field anything else either, so we're going to go start looking for trouble. If we have to, we'll go to hell and back. Thank you very much for watching this introduction to Season 2, and I hope to see you next time. Dire Penguin out.